Good evening. I call the November 28th, 2023 Historic Preservation Board meeting to order. May I please request a roll call?
David Burke,
Present.
James Murphy,
Present.
Kristen Kellogg,
Present.
Dan Pickney,
Present.
Gabriel Jarlowski,
Here.
Melissa Anderson. May the record reflect that Trent Swift and Amanda Skyer are not in attendance tonight.
The next item is the approval of the agenda for tonight's meeting. Staff, are there any changes to the agenda?
Yes, we did have a request from several members of the public to remove 721 Cayuga from the consent agenda and have it be heard.
Thank you. Do any board members have any changes to the agenda? Seeing none, may we have a motion?
I move the board to approve tonight's agenda.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Are there any changes to the minutes for the October 24th, 2023 Historic Preservation Board meeting? Seeing none, may we have a motion?
I move the board to approve last month's meeting minutes.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you. And as vice chair, I will be acting as chair for this meeting in Ms. Skyer's absence. I would like a motion to place Mr. Jaroslawski in the position for the evening of vice chair.
I move that Mr. Jaroslawski be appointed as vice chair this evening.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
The motion carries. Thank you. May we please have the report of the Historic Preservation Planner?
Good evening, board members. Rick Green, Development Services Director. Excuse me. Before we turn it over to Ann, I would like to introduce our new City Historic Preservation Planner, Benjamin Salata, who began with us yesterday. Benjamin comes to us with a Bachelor of Arts degree in History from Florida Atlantic University and a Master's of Arts in Historic Preservation from Savannah College of Art and Design. He had worked in the past with the Historical Society of Palm Beach County and more recently with FEMA doing historic preservation work with them. So we're excited that we have him on board. He will continue to be working with Ann Hamilton, who's done a wonderful job prior to Benjamin coming on board. So Benjamin, I don't know if you want to say a couple of words, but.
Good afternoon, everybody. And I'm excited to be here and a little nervous because this is day 2 and there's a lot I just don't know yet, like how to get around the building. But as Mr. Green said, I have a background in curatorial arts, historic preservation, but I also have worked for commercial residential developers as well. So I understand modern building trades. So super excited to be here, super excited to get on board and be a part of the team going forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you and welcome.
As to the report, we have done 159 permit reviews since our last board meeting on October 24th, 9 zoning reviews, and no level 2 reviews. And as part of the report, I will also be doing a brief presentation on Northwood Shores, which did make an application to become a historic district. So I'll start that now. So this is just to update the board. The Northwood Shores Neighborhood Association, about 6 months ago, did put in an application for us to explore creating a historic district in that area. As some of you may know, Northwood Shores is next to the old Northwood Historic District on the north end of the city. Certainly has a great concentration of historic structures, a level of contributing structures that we would certainly see within a historic district. And staff was very excited to have received an application from the neighborhood to explore it. So, as a result of that, and just some background, the neighborhood has looked into this since probably the 90s, but this is the first time that they have done a formal survey on the matter. This was also spurred by recent redevelopment in the neighborhood, where they are seeing, as we're seeing in much of the city, tear downs, new construction that's perhaps out of scale with the surrounding environment. So we did hold a meeting with them prior to 2021, and then have held 3 community meetings this year, one March 21st, prior to the neighborhood submitting an application, and then 2 after the neighborhood submitted an application, so one on August 15th and another on September 27th. We then sent out mailers to the residents on October 1st, asking them for each property to provide whether they support, oppose, or reserve opinion on a new historic district in the area. And they were given until November 1st to provide their responses. To report what we received about 46% no response, 14% yes, and 37% no, and a few no response or undeliverable. So of percentage of respondents, that is a 71% no rate, a 27% yes rate, and a 2% reserve opinion. These were the proposed boundaries for a potential historic district in this area. And as you can see, really a great concentration of contributing structures, that's in blue. So we just wanted to update the board. Obviously, as you know, there are a number of eligible applicants for a new historic district. One of those could be the Historic Preservation Board if the board decided that they would like to initiate a designation. However, given the significant negative response from the neighborhood on this topic, staff does not recommend doing so. But just wanted to provide an update on the application that was submitted and the survey that we performed in the area. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
I have a question. Were you able to overlay the yes responses with the contributing and non-contributing property max?
We did not do that because, whether or not a property is contributing, we weren't really taking that into consideration, whether or not someone wanted to be in the historic district. It was more just within a specific neighborhood boundary.
Can individuals request to be designated?
Yes, absolutely, and I think that certainly for any of the people that wanted to be part of a historic district and, really cared about designating their homes, certainly we'd like to work with the neighborhood to get as many of those designated and preserved as possible, because really there are quite a number of homes there that have historic.
Is the department proactive in this, or do you just wait for an individual homeowner to do it?
Typically, we let people come to us for designations. However, in this instance, I think it would be appropriate to do a bit of outreach to the neighborhood, particularly maybe sending out mailers to people that voted yes and just saying, this is the process that, you can follow to individually designate. We know that you were interested, and it would be a great option for you for the reasons that we discussed, becoming a historic district.
And I believe some of the oldest homes are clustered together.
Correct.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Thank you, Anne. Now we will, Anne, are you done?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Now we will move into remarks by the chairperson. The matters before us are quasi-judicial in nature. That means that we make our decision based on competent, substantial evidence that comes before us. We ask that you keep this in mind when making your comments. How this works is that the applicant will make a presentation of up to 10 minutes, 15 minutes if there is a demolition. Afterwards, staff will make a presentation. After staff, we will open it up to public comment. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. The applicant may have a short rebuttal after the public speaks. To lead into this, we as board members need to disclose whether we have discussed the cases before us with anyone prior to tonight's meeting. So we will start with disclosure of ex parte communications.
I, David Burke, as to matter 23-39 alpha, have had ex parte communications with Mariano Garcia and have received an email from Mariano Garcia as well. I have not conducted an investigation, I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions. I request these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matter, let's see here. 23-39A, I, Trent Swift, have not had ex parte communications, have had or received written communications via email from Mariana Garcia. Ann Hamilton is CC'd on those, and I would request that those be made part of the record. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit other than I live in the neighborhood and walk past that area, and I have not received expert opinions, and I request that all these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Yes, as to matter 23-39A on tonight's agenda, I, James Murphy, had received an message to contact Mariano Garcia regarding a concern about a neighbor. I was not able to discuss anything with him. I did not return I did not call him. As for the other items on the agenda, I have not received written communications with the exception of what's on my desk distributed by staff. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record for James Murphy.
As to case number 23-39A, 3017 Vincent Road, I received the written communications that the other board members also expressed, including those shown on our table here that staff printed for us. Thank you. And I also went by the site. For the other matters on tonight's agenda, I have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to the matters on this evening's agenda, I, Dan Pickney, have not had ex parte communications. I have not received written communications. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit. I have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matter of all items in tonight's agenda, I, Gabe Jaslowski, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
As to matter of all items on the agenda this evening, I, Jeff Sheldon, have not had ex parte communications, have not received written communications, have not conducted an investigation, have not made a site visit, have not received expert opinions. I request that these disclosures and all written communications be made part of the record.
Kyle Waters. As to the matter of tonight's agenda, just like the board up here, we've had the same communication as regards to case number 2339A. I have not received written communication. I have not conducted an investigation. I have not made a site visit, and I have not received expert opinions.
Thank you. If we have anyone here tonight who wishes to speak on a matter not on the agenda this evening, now is the time to do so. Seeing none, we'll move into the swearing in of our speakers. If you wish to speak on a matter that is on the agenda tonight, please stand to be sworn in.
Do you swear or affirm to tell the truth, the whole truth? I know there's a part after that, but thank you, that's all.
Thank you. And if you wish to speak, and you're from the public here, make sure that you fill out one of the cards and hand it to the board secretary, please. So we will now start with case number 22-80A, 721 Cayuga Drive. Oh, excuse me, we need to approve the consent cases first. Do we have a motion on the consent cases?
Consent cases minus 2288, right? So I move the board to approve consent cases number 23-59, 2416 Medina Way, and case number 23-66, 5311 North Flagler Drive.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. If you are case number 23-59 or 23-66, you are approved. Thank you. Now we will move to case number 22-80A, 721 Cayuga Drive. May we please have the applicant?
Hello, my name is Natalie Bach, for the record. I'm here representing the owner of 721 Cayuga Drive. Today we are here requesting retroactive demolition approval for work done on the property. Based on the last meeting last month, we are here presenting an updated demolition plan that represents the current conditions of the site, as well as a letter provided by the structural engineer that outlines the conditions that were found on site. The goal is to gain approval on the retroactive demolition and then move forward with the previously approved design, which I have here for your reference. The scope of the project is to retain the existing structure, add an addition and a detached garage. So we have floor plans here, elevations here, and again, nothing has changed from the previously approved plans aside from the revised demolition plan, which is provided in your packet.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, may we have the staff presentation? Thank you.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 22-80A for additions and alterations at 721 Cayuga Drive. I'll be brief because you did hear most of this last month, but the applicant has come in with submitted plans that show the demolition that occurred. So we're really seeking approval for the plans that will be submitted as part of the permit set. This location is on Cayuga Drive in the Flamingo Park neighborhood. This is a photo of the house prior to demolition, and a more current site photo showing the condition of the house as it is today. And these are some photos of what the house looked like prior to the demolition as well, and some more current site conditions, showing exactly what will be built on. As you can see here, this is the plan showing what exactly was demolished, and the applicant has submitted an engineer's report stating that what they did demolish was beyond repair. Speaking to the conditions that were on the site, obviously we can't verify that now as most of the material is gone, but this provides some record of what was removed. This is the proposed site plan. It is the same as what was approved under 22-80 a year ago. This is the ground floor plan, same configuration, same layout. The second floor plan and elevations, which show exactly what was approved by the board a year ago. and we are recommending approval. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the board for staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll move into public comment. Thank you, Anne. We have a number of cards here. When I call your name, please come up to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please. I'll start with Ms. Cullen.
Hi, me again. Linda Cullen, 828 Biscayne Drive, Flamingo Park. And I thank you for your indulgence in this. It was me who asked for this case to be pulled because of the number of calls that I have gotten over the since the house was demolished from people in the neighborhood. So a number of people have come now, wanted to see the full presentation, wanted to make sure that you know that they're interested and that they're going to pay attention. So I won't belabor it. I think one of their main goals is to make sure that that new construction, it may not be obvious to everyone, goes across the center line of the two lots so that that lot cannot be subdivided. And I think that's their primary thing. And how soon, maybe, we haven't heard that, maybe how soon the rest of the demolition can take place, and it won't look like it did in the photographs. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Madeline Ellie, if I'm saying that correctly.
So good evening, Madeline Ely, 708 Canoga Drive. So ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate the opportunity to address you this afternoon regarding the issues arising from the debacle at 721 Canoga Drive, a demolition without the proper permit and a renovation project that has now transformed into a brand new construction. I live across the street. I'm disappointed that not more is being done to preserve the integrity and the authenticity of Flamingo Park. It concerns me that homeowners and contractor owners in our neighborhood are permitted to transform historic homes beyond recognition or to demolish them with the excuse that they were too old or in too poor condition or had no historical significance, only to build big brand new homes that lack the character of our Flamingo Park. We are not, and we should not try to be a mini El Cid. The fundamental idea behind establishing and maintaining a historic district should be to respect the true meaning of the word historic, and not to create an illusion of historic-looking homes, rather than preserving authentic historical residences. I fear that if left unchecked, Flamingo Park may become as authentic as taking a tour of Europe at the Epcot Center. Members of the board, let's work together to keep the true meaning of historic in Flamingo Park. Thank you.
Thank you. May we have Suzette Green next, please?
Suzette Green, 827 Biscayne Drive. My biggest concern about this property is, yes, it's 80 years old, and yes, it has integrity issues in terms of construction. However, almost every house in Flamingo Park has these issues. If we are going to have demolition, then we need to have proper assessment prior to the issue of a permit. And this was not done. The house was not really thoroughly investigated by an engineer, only afterwards. Oh, we have spatuling, we have bad walls. This can be determined before a permit is issued to tear down any house in a historic area. That's normal procedure. In this case, the demolition was done without the proper procedure in order to determine whether or not the structure was viable. Obviously, it's gone now, and one of the other issues that we are concerned about in this neighborhood is the division of properties that are actually not allowed to be divided. We have spent 40 years in this neighborhood turning it from a crack house, one after the other, into a very viable part of this community and a huge contributor to the tax base. We want to be recognized for our work, and we want to be given the proper accordings for all the permits that are required for historic preservation neighborhoods. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a card here from Carolyn, and I'm sorry, I cannot read your last name. Thank you.
Thank you for your, all your work, and thank you for allowing me to come before you and express my concerns. My husband and I lived in the El Cid neighborhood when our children were young, and we moved away for a while and moved back to Flamingo Park about 6 weeks ago. We moved back because we loved the fact that the city has made a commitment to preserving and recognizing the importance that the historic neighborhoods have for the city of West Palm Beach. We're certainly not new to the fact that you come across unusual things whenever you purchase an old home and you get surprises that you weren't expecting. That's part of what makes them unique and makes them challenging. However, I do have a concern that by this house being demolished with no proper approval before it was demolished, that this could potentially set a precedent and more houses could be demolished without the approval that should be implemented before tearing down a house. And I'd like to know if there's a way to assure that that won't happen.
Thank you. And I also have a comment card from Mary Weiss. Is Mary here, or? Thank you, Mary. We also have a letter attached from her as well.
Good evening. My name is Mary Weiss. I'm a resident of Flamingo Park. I live at 730 Park Place. I'm also a member of the Palm Beach County Historical Society Board of Governors. I am making this comment to provide the board with additional information on the historic significance of 721 Canoga Drive. The property is not only a contributing property, but it is, quote, identified with personages in local history, as stated in the West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Ordinance. According to the 1947 Polk's West Palm Beach City Directory, the property was owned by Thomas M. Ricards, R-C-K-H-A-R-D-S Jr., the first owner. Thomas Jr. was the son of Captain Thomas M. Ricards, Sr., also known as the judge. Thomas Sr. was the first county judge in Palm Beach County, who was appointed when the county was established. He served for 2 years. Before that, he was a justice of the peace for West Palm Beach District. Thomas Sr. had a varied career, including hiking with the Barefoot Mailman, sponsoring Japanese workers for homesteading in Del Rey, evaluating land for Henry Flagler's experimental orange groves, and drawing plans for the city of Boca Raton. Thomas Sr., with his brother James, ran the Express Agency. In 1899, James became a postmaster. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, and thank you for that background. It looks like we may have a couple more comment cards that are just coming in, so we'll wait a moment to receive those. Dan Begley? Thank you.
Hi, my name's Dan Begley. I have a house in Flamingo Park I restored 20 years ago, and I was before this board. And I had structural issues, which I fixed. And I saw the meeting where they talked about they were in the hospital or I personally don't believe that someone that's done as much development as they have just let this house get torn down. And what I'm seeing in Flamingo Park is developers are now coming in and saying how much money they can make. It's easier to tear something down than restore it. And there's another property on Ardmore that's kind of in the same situation. So my concern, I'm not even crazy about the design. I don't think it's gonna look anything like the house before, but okay, you gotta make money. But I think something should be done to where there's some kind of fine other than a slap on the wrist where they $20,000 fine or whatever it is, and then they can just do what they want. So I don't know if there's something that can be done. You could guide me to find out how the city can discourage people from doing this, because this house is probably gonna be worth $2.5 million or more when he puts it on the market. And, you know, it's pennies, whatever the fine is. So I don't know, what we could do is to make the fines a little bit more solid, where people are going to think twice before they're going to tear something down and build what they want. All right, thanks.
Thank you. Scott Goosley, I believe.
Scott Gorland.
Oh, yeah, that's it.
2001 Lake Avenue. I'm a block and a half down from this house, and you know, I support everything that was said so far by the folks that have come up before, and you know, I just want to ask you all, what are we doing here? Why are we here as a historic preservation? What's the purpose of it? What's the purpose of Flamingo Park to our neighborhoods? What's the purpose of Flamingo Park to the city of West Palm Beach? Right? It's a valuable resource. It's a valuable resource to protect, right? It's not just a valuable resource for those who happen to be blessed to be living in it. It's a valuable resource to South Florida. It's a valuable resource to protect the historic values in the neighborhood, to protect houses that are 50 to 100 years old, right? So when we look at this, can't just think of it as a bunch of bricks that was knocked down, right? There is a historic value, there is an economic value, there is a tourism value, and we let one, what's next? So I want you all to just keep that in mind as you think through the value to all of us of making sure that when folks come in, and they come into these neighborhoods, all of these neighborhoods, right, they do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Elena Alonso.
Good afternoon, evening. Alina Alonso, 735 Biscayne Drive. I've been a resident of Flamingo Park since 1990. I spent a lot of time making sure that my home was restored properly for the love of old architect, which is kind of shameful. I went to Italy and I saw what really old stuff really was. It's a little silly, we call this stuff historic. But anyway, my point is pretty simple. If we allow people to come into our neighborhoods and knock down houses, or partially knock them down and let the wood rot so that they don't have to then preserve it correctly, the next thing you're going to have is every Tom, Dick, and Harry that wants to make money come to Flamingo Park and knock them all down. They make more money. So what if you give them a fine? It means nothing to them. It means everything to us who are living there. That's why we moved there. And this last gentleman is absolutely correct. This is a lot more, much more valuable than the buildings that are going up on every corner in this building, blocking the views of the waterways and everything else. This is what brings value to this area here in Palm Beach County. So please, let's not let this keep happening. It's a shame that it happened once. Let's not let it happen again. It's very important to us.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public that wishes to speak on this matter? We have no other comment cards that have been received. Okay. All right. Thank you. And I would also like to thank the Flamingo Park residents who are here this evening. It's really wonderful to see community involvement in our historic districts, because your involvement is what makes these districts stay preserved as they are, which everyone up here is also passionate about, which is why we give our time to do this. I would like to see if Ms. Hamilton could come up, and for the people who are here tonight who weren't here last time, if you could just walk us through what the steps were that were taken when you found out that the demolition had occurred that was unauthorized, so that everyone understands what happens when you identify that.
Yes, absolutely. And to address some of the concerns, I think that we discussed this at the last board meeting, but I want to reiterate, you know, per the board's direction, and I think as staff conversation after this occurred, we are, and you have an example on your desk, looking at updating our code of ordinances to put in more significant penalties for situations like this should it occur. You have an example from Miami Beach on your desk. If anyone would like to send me others, or perhaps any, you know, further suggestions that they have as we go through that process. But, you know, certainly there are other municipalities that have more significant penalties for occurrences like this, and that's something that we can learn from this situation. So in brief, to recap sort of the process that went on here, I did receive a call from a resident that there was demolition going on the site, so a building inspector was sent out. They did stop work on the site, and you know, we're told to not be doing work without a permit because in this particular situation, the permit had not been issued. And further than that, more demolition occurred than was contained in the permit. So work was stopped. You know, they were cited for demolition by neglect, which is what we have in our code of ordinances. It is a $15,000 fine. For occurrences like this. We then informed the applicant that they would have to come to the board, make a presentation, explain what occurred, what materials were lost, and we did that at the last meeting, and I believe the guidance was that they needed to come back with a formalized application that they can then submit for permitting that shows, you know, the extent of demolition that occurred, an engineer's letter justifying the amount of demolition that occurred, and you know, new plans that are reflective of the current conditions of the site. So they have done that now, and that is where we are today.
Thank you. If we could have the applicant come up, you have an opportunity for rebuttal if you'd like to say anything in response to the comments that were received. It's not mandatory.
So hello, my name is Sam Fish, and we've heard all your comments, and we do appreciate the passion that you guys have for the neighborhood. I've been in real estate for a long time. I've sold many homes in Flamingo Park. We've done many historic restorations. We've done some very, very nice restorations. We were awarded one of the Historic Restoration Awards 4 or 5 years ago for a home we did in El Cid. So we do care about historic restoration, and we do care about the neighborhoods that we work in. So this is an unfortunate situation that happened. It was not something, despite what, you know, everybody might think, this isn't something that was motivated by, certainly not motivated by money or greed. This was an accident, and it was not something that that's happened before. We don't have a history of this. We do have a history of working with a lot of these neighborhoods and actually restoring and doing a very good job in these neighborhoods, and my track record does show that. We're not looking to do anything that was, you know, suggested, as in like splitting the lot. The plans that we are going in with right now are the same set of plans that were approved a year ago. So we're not asking for anything other than an approval of the original plans. The only change was that we did modify the demolition scope based on the demolition that did occur. So I appreciate everything that you guys have said. I assure you, Linda, I've reached out to you personally a year ago or a year and a half ago about this project, and I even emailed you recently, and all the things that were said, we appreciate that, but what we have said is the absolute truth, and we're not asking or looking to modify any part of the building that was approved already. We are just looking to move forward with the project so that it will be completed and it will look exactly like the plans that were approved a year ago. It's the same set of plans that we did submit today. So thank you. We appreciate everyone's time here, and we look forward to doing good work in this house and other houses in the area. Thank you.
And Mr. Fish, I just want to confirm, because of the comment that was received, the site that we're looking at, the site plan for it, it does straddle the property line. All right, are there any additional questions or comments by the board before we move into executive session? Okay. All right, we will move into executive session. Thank you. Would someone be willing to kick us off here?
Sure. I'll start. First of all, I'm very familiar with the ordinance that was circulated. As you know, I worked many years and lived even more of as a resident of Miami Beach. Was proud to be a civil servant there. I had great civic pride because of its historic architecture, its districts, and its overall sense of place. That said, I'm glad the Director of Development Services is here and has begun internal discussions with staff about taking a proactive strengthening of the ordinance for demolition, because this is exactly the kind of thing that should be needed. I think I made the motion to have the applicants come back as a new application, so I'm glad that's here. And I just want to go on the record saying that the plans today, as the plans that were approved previously, I believe at least consume the original structure. So I find no difference aside from the penalty that they received, that the drawings that we are reviewing tonight are exactly the same drawings as was previously approved. And the project then, as it is now, made no attempts to kind of retain the original contributing structure. So I have totally fine with the presentation that is on our agenda tonight.
Thank you. Any further comment?
I just wanted to say, if it's okay, that in rare cases like this, once the applicant comes here, it's already a little too late. So it's important for people in the community to recognize that and to be aware, as you have been, when something is going on that's amiss. Should also be aware of the processes of government that, speaking to your council person in mass and finding someone who supports your issues is a very important thing as well, and that's how laws get changed.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that sentiment. I think seeing the involvement and the outpouring from the community is wonderful, and it's not my place to give a civics lesson, but as I believe the one attorney on the board, my colleague is correct. By the time you come to a meeting of the Historic Preservation Board, it's probably already too late. And our function, while we are quasi-judicial in nature, we can't interfere with somebody's property right. That's for a judge. If you see something that concerns you, addressing it with your commissioner, your elected official, that's the appropriate place to start. If you don't like the answer or you think not enough is being done, certainly speaking with an attorney or somebody else that can get you in front of a judge is the remedy. Coming in front of us, we don't write the code. We barely have discretion to interpret that code. Our job is very, very limited. The type of relief you're seeking, I wholeheartedly agree with. I live in a historic neighborhood. I live in a historically contributing home. I know the headaches that go into renovating, and I would be terribly upset to see a bunch of new structures put up and old structures torn down in my neighborhood. But I also know that the way that you would go about affecting that change unfortunately doesn't involve us in any way, shape, or form. It involves the commission, it involves the mayor. And if you don't like those answers, it involves starting an administrative proceeding or seeking judicial intervention. And so I would encourage everybody here, if you decided to take the time out of your day in the holiday season on a Tuesday at 5 o'clock, God bless you, and thank you for doing that. And I don't mean this to sound snide or dismissive, but please, please, please understand that there's not much that we can do, and that the phone calls, the effort, everything should be directed at your commissioners, at the mayor, and if necessary, at a judge, because I think your cause is noble, but your target might have been a little off base. And so I thank you for your participation. It's what makes our city great. And I hope that this makes some sense to you, and if it doesn't, I'm happy to speak with anybody afterwards.
Well, and I'll also add to that, I do think it's important that the community is here tonight to be heard. It's important for our historic districts to have a voice at these meetings, and I would encourage you to keep coming. We're hearing what you're saying. Obviously, we do have limits to what we're able to do. Ms. Hamilton and I know Ms. Mittner previously also heard this, not necessarily specific to this project even, but just in previous demolition by neglect type of projects, what can be done, and it sounds like steps are being taken per Ms. Hamilton's address to us a few moments ago. So I would also encourage you to reach out to Ms. Hamilton and also Mr. Salata, correct, Benjamin? Yes. And, you know, they will help direct you to the appropriate forum. On top of that, if you have cases that you know of, Ms. Hamilton did say, you know, let's send them her way and help her with her research in terms of what we can do to prevent further cases like this. Any further commentary from the board on this case?
Yeah, so I am not a lawyer, but I am an architect, and this is really hurtful when we see this happen. And I understand, I don't know exactly what alternatives we have. I don't know what the city alternative have for cases like this. I think that this is too late. I don't recognize the letter from the structural engineer. I think that is after the fact and the procedure was not followed. So in good conscience, I cannot support the approval of this case.
Can I ask our board attorney, are we able to object to a case because of demolition that was not approved?
I think you're limited to the standards that have been set forth by the Secretary of Interior and the standards that are set forth in your code. I don't believe that there is an adequate remedy at this point in your code to take into account the fact that this was done, other than the fact that it's gone through code enforcement, which it's currently doing, and that's a separate parallel proceeding. I'm not sure that you have, I don't believe you have the authority to take into account the fact it was demolished without a permit in your consideration of approving it. I think you have to stick to the standards that you've got in the code, which are the Secretary of Interior standards and those set forth in the code. The ordinance which Anne has given to you is something which can be used in the future if we passed it, which would limit the, I think it's the same height, massing, and square footage of anything that was demolished without a permit, any future application that could be applied to an after-the-fact situation. But in terms of this case today, I think you're limited to the standards that are set forth in the code.
And bringing this case back to the board like it is tonight, which was something that you said was within our power that we should do at the last meeting, is really the extent of what our board can do at this point.
I think at this point, the way the code is currently written, yes, that's correct.
All right, thank you. If there's no further commentary, would someone be willing to try a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that Historic Preservation Board approve application number 22-80A for alterations and additions in accordance with standards 9 and 10, as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance number 3554-02. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff memo, which constitutes competent substantial evidence.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
The motion carries. Do we need a roll call for that one? No. Okay. All right, the motion carries. And thank you to everyone who took the time to be here tonight. We do encourage you to reach out to Ms. Hamilton to aid us in making sure that things like this do not happen in the future. Thank you. Moving to case number 23-65 for 234 Sunset Road. We'll start with the applicant presentation.
I guess we're the architects of FGS Design. We're here to present a new house in El Cid at 234 Sunset Road. Caleb from our office here is the historic district expert, so he'll give his little presentation on the project, and CC Catherine over here is the project architect. So between the three of us, we're gonna present the project. I'll let Caleb start.
Hi there. Let's see what I can see. And you've seen all the existing streetscape photos and existing vicinity photos. I think what's important is what we're going for is something that we're choosing to call Caribbean Regency. And what we're starting with is sort of the massing and materials of the vernacular that's available in the El Cid district and thereabouts. Everything in this image is contributing structures in El Cid, with the exception of 2901 Washington, which is immediately adjacent, and of course the Four Winds by Fascio. So we're starting with the massing of a two-story house that we see a lot of, with the A, B, the sort of differentiations of volumes here, 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 here. We see it a lot. That's the jumping off point. Also on our road on Sunset is this beautiful little sort of Regency-style house. It's a one-story house, but we think it's got a lot of charm and a lot of meretricious detail. And so it's very in keeping with what's happening regionally in the 30s and 40s and, end of the 30s, 40s, and 50s with Volk and Fascio. introducing Regency style into the, the local lexicon. So an example of that we were really looking at was Four Winds on the island. And so, and in conjunction of sort of those two sort of informing details, adding a little bit more formality to sort of what we would call kind of a Caribbean style house, that's kind of the amalgam of where we were headed with the design intent. And then I'll let Cece explain how we've allowed that to manifest in the design.
Thank you. Hello. I'm going to start with the site plan. So to orient you here, Sunset Road is on the right side of the screen. And this is a 4,000 square foot main house with a detached garage. And what we've done, which you'll see in the elevations and the floor plans, is the main volume of the street-facing facade. The sort of story of the house is that was the main volume, and that the extension on the back was added later. So let me walk you through the floor plans quickly. So here's the first floor plan. The front entrance here on the top right of the screen, you're received into an entrance hall, the stairway leading up. All of the public rooms in the house are on the first floor, so living room here, kitchen with the dining area, and family room. There's a southern-facing covered terrace on the back facing the pool. And you'll see in the elevations, we've sort of opened up the facades on the back here to let some more light in and also sort of relate to the exterior. As you go upstairs, there's 4 bedrooms. The main suite is here in the front part of the house. Bathroom, bedroom, closets, and laundry room. And as you go into the extension, there's 3 bedrooms and 3 bathrooms. You'll see here on the roof plan, so this is the main volume that we're trying to distinguish as what would have been the old part of the house. The roof is the highest here, as this is wider than the extension, so the extension is not viewable from the street. And the front just pops out a little bit to distinguish that A-B elevation that Caleb was referencing. Oops, sorry. As I noted, there's a single detached garage with an outdoor kitchen. This is a very simple structure. Also, it's smaller in nature than the main house, and this is towards the very back of the property. So here's the front elevation. Again, that A-B elevation that Caleb was referencing is what we were trying to emphasize here. As well as some of the traditional elements, and I'll let Kiko talk about some of the detailing of the elevation.
Yeah, most of the, what we call Regency detailing, you can reference, you can see it a lot in some of the houses from the time, like Caleb mentioned. We and our client really likes the house that's literally two doors down, which is this one. It has those sort of stripes on the stucco and the nice little gable ends. And so we sort of borrowed a lot of those design elements to come up with a language, to compose the elevations of the house. And that's sort of what you see here on the piano nobile on the second floor. You see the stripes that are just literally scored on the stucco, and then the bottom is just very smooth. And simple, and then the little porch at the front, little portico, is just a little bit more, has a little bit more of a crude detail here at the top that makes it reference the Regency style of the 40s. And that's it. The shutters are very much used all over the neighborhood. We have tub hung shutters on the sides for privacy. And yes, the porch in the rear is to provide shade and some cover on the southern side of the house. Is that me? Am I good? That's it, I guess. Yeah, so we do have some 3D renderings here at the bottom. Of, and here are some 3D renderings that shows the massing of the new house, the proposed house, and how it's placed on the site.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Hi, good evening. Thank you for the presentation. There are 3 conditions of approval from staff. Do you know about them? Did you know?
Sorry, what's the, I'm sorry.
3 conditions for approval, like regarding like the demolition and the application as a whole, or you talking about the Secretary's standards?
There are 3 conditions. I'm going to read it to you. I just want to make sure that you understand and if you agree or not with them.
Okay.
The first is that the Bahama shutters on the west elevation shall be eliminated and replaced with pair colonial shutters to match all other elevations.
Oh, okay, yeah. No, we are not aware of these conditions.
Okay. You are not aware?
No.
Okay, so the first condition is that the Bahama, I mean, we can skip this if you want and,
I would read them.
okay. The first condition is the Bahama shutters on the west elevation shall be eliminated and replaced with pair colonial shutters to match all other elevations.
Okay.
The second is that all the shutters shall be sized to measure the full height and 1/2 the width of the window frame and should be attached to the window casing rather than the exterior finish material.
Sure.
All shutters shall be paired rather than single, with exception of those on either side of the chimney on the east elevation.
What's the chimney comment, sorry?
Oh, it's
I
where,
think we have
it's
some
where
bifold
you have a bumped up against the chimney.
Which, in my opinion, those could be also double because
Oh, I see, okay.
you
Yeah,
could
just
provide
make
a
it
shutter
small.
attached to the side. And the third condition is that all windows shall have applied Ogee mountings and clear glass. Okay, low E coating is permissible on the sides and rear only, but the front elevation shall have clear glass.
Okay. We did another house in the historic district where the front, facing windows had to be restored. We were only allowed to use, obviously these are new, but do these have to be wood? Or can they be
No.
clad or, you know? Maybe it's
What is the selection? I think that you choose like a nice
Yeah, they're clad, they have to be clad. No,
Colby
no, sorry.
window, I believe that I saw.
Yeah, no, we have that's fine.
Yes.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, wood, clad, and aluminum are all acceptable window solutions.
Yeah, we're doing another project across the street with clad windows, I'm sorry. Forgot.
So it sounds like the conditions are acceptable to you?
Yeah, shutters are easy to modify, not an issue. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions by members of the board? Well, I'd like to thank you for your presentation. The drawings were very easy to read, and it's a thoughtful design.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
May we have the staff presentation?
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-65 for demolition and new construction at 234 Sunset Road. This site is in the El Cid Historic District, near the corner of South Olive and Sunset. It is a southern lot in this neighborhood, and it was constructed, the house that was on the lot currently, which is non-contributing, was constructed in 1952. As you can see here, while charming is not a contributing structure and is eligible to be demolished. We don't have any objection to that. These are the neighboring properties at 230 and 240 Sunset. As you can see, there's a 2-story at 230 Sunset, echoing the massing of this proposal. The request is for demolition of the existing non-contributing structure of approximately 1,229 square feet and construction of a new two-story, single-family residence of approximately 4,000 square feet, including a rear one-story detached garage, as well as general site work. This is the proposed site plan, as the applicant did a very good job of explaining. The roof plan, the first floor plan, the second floor plan, and a plan of the proposed garage and outdoor kitchen. Here are the front elevations, as the applicant has already shown you. It does feature shutters, which is the main condition that staff has recommended on the case, which is we're finding some of the details on those shutters to better reflect the design guidelines and their specifications for shutters. Here are the side elevations and the rear elevation and some garage elevations. As you can see, it fits in well with the streetscape. It's close in massing to the home next door and other homes on the street. And here are some 3D renderings further showing the massing of the project. We believe that this does meet the review criteria for demolition, and the loss of this non-contributing structure will not represent an irreparable loss to the El Cid Historic District or the City of West Palm Beach, and are therefore recommending approval of the demolition. And we also believe that this meets all standards for new construction, and are therefore recommending with the approval with the conditions that were previously referenced in the applicant's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Questions of staff?
This require two motions?
Yes.
And the, what is the side setback for a two-story structure?
It's dependent on the zoning district. I need to.
So in this one, it's at 6 feet, that, for the first and second floor, that's sufficient?
Yes, I believe for this particular zoning district, it's 5 foot required on one side, and probably 15 on the other.
It should be a 15 cumulative, I would think.
Yeah, sorry, 15 cumulative.
Okay, thank you, Anne. Is there any public comment for this case? Okay. I don't think we need an applicant rebuttal as there's no public comment. And we'll move into executive session. Well, I'll just say we have had 2 projects on the street, so I'm very familiar with it. And I think that the massing is really sensitive to what you would see historically. Looking at the FAR and lot coverage, you know, they're using the bonuses, but to me, the massing still feels restrained. And I really like the 1-car garage. Again, just restraint comes to mind, and it's nice to see such thoughtful development in our historic districts. I think we're ready for a motion.
Okay. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 23-65 for demolition in accordance with the demolition guidelines as set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent substantial evidence.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries.
Second motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Board approve application number 2365 for new construction in accordance with the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, specifically standards 9 and 10, as well as the additional compatibility criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the City Zoning and Land Development Regulations. The motion is based on the testimony presented, along with the application submitted and the staff report, which constitute competent, substantial evidence. In addition, the approval of this request is made conditional upon the following restrictions, stipulations, and/or safeguards that I move are necessary to ensure compliance with the purpose and intent of the Historic Preservation Ordinance and the Historic Preservation element of the Comprehensive Plan of the City of West Palm Beach, the Secretary of Interior's Standards for Rehabilitation, specifically 9 and 10. Criteria set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the city's zoning and land development regulations. Okay, the conditions include the following.
On screen.
I'm sorry.
That helps.
Okay. The Bahama shutters on the west elevation shall be eliminated and replaced with paired colonial shutters to match all other elevations. 2, all shutters shall be sized to measure the full height and 1/2 of the width of the window frame and should be attached to the window casing rather than the exterior finish material. All shutters shall be paired rather than single, with the exception of those on either side of the chimney on the east elevation. 3, all windows shall have applied OG muntins and clear glass. Low E coating is permissible on sides and rear only.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion carries. Congratulations. Thank you. Moving to case number 23-39A for 3017 Vincent Road. We'll start with the applicant presentation.
Good evening. My name's Alan Sicklin. I'm a lawyer in West Palm Beach with the Jones Foster. I'm representing Holly Ross, who's here tonight. And most importantly, next to me is Earl Jackson, our architect, who is going to go through the standards for rehabilitation that's on your screen, and also the city's ordinance for new construction, alterations, and demolition. Holly was also going to testify. She's a little nervous, so she asked me if I would read this into the record for her. It's brief, but it addresses the personal needs of Holly as the owner. She says the following: I would first like to thank the board for your time and consideration of my request for a small addition above my garage that is necessary to accommodate the needs of my family. My father is an incredible man who adopted me when I was 14 years old and has taken care of us and always put everyone else first. Sadly, he was diagnosed with Parkinson's disease, and he and my mother will be moving in with me. The additional room is necessary to accommodate this, along with our 2 daughters and 3 grandchildren that will be visiting. Respectfully submitted. Holly also made the rounds of her neighborhood, and we have 10 or so letters of recommending approval, which I'll submit for the record, along with Mr. Jackson's resume. And without going over those, you're welcome to read them in detail, but just to give you sort of a highlight reel, this home is truly a welcome addition to our neighborhood. We've lived here for 3 generations, and what has been done to restore the previously rundown home is wonderful. We wholeheartedly support the addition over the garage. The extensive work Holly is performing is amazing. And then we have letters from the co-chairman and board member of the Historic Prospect and Southland Parks Neighborhood Association, offering them their support. Then a final comment, again, there's more, but it's transformation from a state of disrepair to a beautifully designed, historically renovated home that enhances the beauty and value of the neighborhood. The only thing I would say before I introduce Mr. Jackson is that we're focused in on the fact that this is a quasi-judicial hearing, as you've mentioned, and we believe that Mr. Jackson's going to offer a lot of substantial competent evidence as to compliance with the requirements of the Secretary of Interior and your own code. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Earl, let him do his thing, and then reserve just a few minutes for rebuttal at the end. Thank you. Earl?
Thank you, Alan. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for your participation in this ongoing process at 3017 Vincent. Thank you for your collaboration and your patience. And what we ask of you tonight is to grant Mrs. Ross the small additional area she needs for her family. We have met now on July 31st with the previous architect, still in collaboration, on August 22nd, and we're here again tonight on the 28th. The slides I have in front of us identify all of the criteria as outlined by the Secretary of Interior. I think I'd be wasteful in using our time to read those all to you. As you know, on August 22nd, much of the project was approved, and we are not doing anything to challenge any of the criteria outlined by the Secretary of Interior's report, with the small addition that we're asking that you approve this evening. Instead, I'll focus it more on the additional criteria requested of the applicant. The area in shaded tone on the site plan that you see at the left is approximately 211 square feet net of master bedroom space for the applicant and her family. The zoning and setbacks and everything associated with this still falls under, I think, what we have had approved at the last hearing. We've sat and met with Mrs. Hamilton on zoning, setbacks, height, FAR, and all of the other requirements, and we believe that we are in compliance, and her letter, I think, confirms that belief. And we believe that we are also in line or set back further than the neighbors adjacent to our property or those others on the street. Building height was something on July 31st that was requested to be brought down. It originally started at 24 feet 10 inches to the peak, which is the location of the second floor on the left-hand side of the elevation that you see. An 8-inch reduction was requested, and that was brought down to 24 foot 2 inches. When drawings were submitted for construction approvals, that height was further reduced to 23 foot 8 inches, well within the 25-foot limit required by the ordinance. The area that's shaded on the upper right-hand corner of the flat elevation is the area we're requesting for the addition. The height of that is at 22 foot 6 inches, about 14 inches lower than the highest point of the existing building and lower than the building adjacent to it. When asked if design style is compatible with the surrounding neighborhood, we have gathered a number of photos of projects in the area that could easily be confused with the one that we're building now. So we believe that we are entirely contextual in terms of character and style. Window proportions of openings. On July 31st, there was a request to reduce and alter the proportions of some of the windows on the second floor for that approval. There is nothing that we're doing in the small addition proposed that would challenge any of those dimensions. In fact, we're using standard window sizes from the previous approval to add the bedroom over the garage. Rhythms of solids and voids. I think you'll notice that there are no ribbon windows here. There are no out of balance punched openings in the mass, so we feel like this is a very respectful, well-balanced approach for the project. You can see set back in the upper right-hand corner the location of that bedroom that Mrs. Ross is requesting. The rhythm of spacing along the street, there are 5 homes on the block of Vincent Road between one corner and the next, creating 4 spaces between those buildings. The total number of space adds up to about 67, almost 68 feet. The space on either side of the home that we're proposing, the addition to, is a sum of 35'4", more than half of the total. You'll see that from left to right, 2211, 21, 15'3", and 9'8" are the individual gaps between each of those structures. It creates an average of about 16'11". Our smallest is less than, our biggest is greater than. The relationship of materials and textures, this is a photo of the existing home, the home before the previous approval and construction. If you go there today, you'll see many of the historic elements like the sign, the tiles on the wall, the stucco is currently maintained. We're not proposing that the new addition being requested tonight challenges any of the materials or character that was previously approved on August 22nd. Roof shapes is something of great discussion. We met with Ms. Hamilton on October 17th before our submission. Looking at the right-hand side of this rendering, we worked with her to change a sloped area of barrel vaulted tile to a flat roof for the garage, so that was altered. And then likewise, we've carried a sculpted parapet for the small addition above, which we feel helps that part of the building further recede from its presence on the street front. Number 9, which has been a great source of discussion and many iterations back and forth now on our 3rd meeting, size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume. We find that when we look at this modeled amongst other homes on the street, that it's quite fitting. You can see the string of elevations on the bottom that show it fitting in quite well. More importantly, when we take a cross-section of the home against the property immediately to its north, we find the mass and bulk and volume to be probably equal to or less than half of the adjacent property that was recently approved and now under renovation. In our discussions with you, there were many comments about the 2nd floor being set back further and what it might look like. Just to give you a sense of the work that we've been doing to try and meet the requests of the board and of the neighborhood. Our first approach at creating the 2nd floor master bedroom included a covered area where the garage was separated from the guest house, and it went from the barrel vaulted roof straight back to meet that. We find that that would have required a variance, and Ms. Ross was not interested in creating more than she needed. So we cut that back. We placed it above the gap between the new garage and the guest house to see if that would serve that area well, create an outdoor space covered for the backyard. And we found that because of circulation issues inside the 2nd floor, the most optimal place to put or propose the bedroom was at the end of the hallway above, which is being created for the previously approved proposal, and place it above the garage. I think serendipitously, you see that the gap that's created between the guest house and the back of the garage is quite spacious, and by not putting that addition over the gap, we're allowing for even more light and air and a much lighter massing for the home as it relates to others around it. We have a view of the back if anybody would like to discuss or question any of those issues on what it looks like from the back. It's the backyard. And with that, I would just like to thank you again for your time and patience and your attention to detail as it relates to this project.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant?
Were you the architect that presented at the August meeting?
I was one of the architects that presented.
And you were aware of the conditions that we placed during that August meeting?
Yes.
All right, thank you. We'll have the staff presentation now.
Good evening. Ann Hamilton presenting case number 23-39A for additions and alterations at 3017 Vincent Road. This is an update to the previously approved plans that you did hear at the August 22nd meeting. This location is in the Prospect Southland Park Historic District. The home was built in 1925. This is a view of the site prior to renovation. This was when we went to take photos for the, I believe, July meeting. And this is what the site looks like currently under renovation, with that second story being added that was approved at the August 22nd meeting. The current request is to add a second story addition and small addition to the ground floor guest suite. The addition would be over the existing garage and is just an update to the previously approved plans that you heard at the August meeting to add that bedroom above the garage. This is the proposed site plan with the 237 square foot addition over that garage. The previously approved first floor plan, there are no changes to that, and the second floor plan with the addition of that bedroom. Here are the proposed elevations, the side elevations, and the rear elevations, and a roof plan with that added addition. These are the 3D renderings that the applicant showed, particularly the separation between the garage and that addition being set back further than was proposed at the August meeting. And the rear, and the left side, and the roof plan. We do believe that this meets all standards and are recommending approval as submitted. Thank you.
Questions of staff?
Is this technically a new application, or is it a new, is it a modification to the existing application?
A modification to the existing application, and they are also requesting an ad valorem along with this.
Even though the building is built? It's under construction, a permit has been issued.
The permit has been issued, however, this is a modification to the plans that were previously approved.
The reason why I ask is because the whole basis of the second floor addition by this board was conditioned that this portion not be there. So, but you said it's a new application, or you said it's a modification?
It's a modification. So, for example, a couple months ago, you saw an application that was a modification for siding on a house where the previous board approval had been with the condition that their siding be retained. So typically when alterations are made to a plan that I guess conflicts with the board's previous approval conditions, we've in the past taken that back as an alteration to the approved plans rather than a wholesale new application.
I also have a question, a procedural question along those lines.
Mm-hmm.
So my understanding is that an application that has been denied cannot come back before us for a year.
Correct.
So does that only apply to a flat-out denial versus conditions?
Correct.
Because this is, would you say this is substantially similar to what we conditioned not having?
I would say there's enough of a change with the 4-foot additional setback from the front that it is a change from the originally submitted plans.
Okay, so the 4 feet is why we're able to come back?
Yes,
before the board?
yeah, they're
Okay.
not submitting the exact same set of plans that they did previously. They're very similar, but there is an alteration.
Any additional questions by the board for staff? Okay, thank you, Ann. Is there any public comment for this case?
We did receive 2 public comment emails, which you have at your desk. I don't know, would you like me to read it into the record, or?
Yeah, I mean, the applicant is represented by counsel. They've got a court reporter here. Clearly, they're planning on appealing, so let's make sure that we get everything on the record. And when your decision is made, let's make sure we put the standard, you guys always do, but just reminding you, make sure we have the standards in the record.
Okay, so Ms. Hamilton, I did see there's someone in person. Maybe let them go first, and then you can read the ones
Absolutely.
into the record. Okay. If you'll please come up, and you can go ahead and speak, but after you're done, if you'll fill out the comment card and hand it to the board. Oh, perfect, thank you. And just state your name and address for the record, please.
Okay. Good evening, everybody. My name is Mariano Garcia. I'm here with my wife, Shelley. We live at 3009 Vincent Road, which is the property immediately adjacent to the applicant to the north. We've lived there for 25 years. Our property actually turned 100 in June of this year. Because we're most impacted by this proposed application, I would ask you to indulge me with a little bit more time. I know that you got a very long letter from me. I apologize for that. I'm a lawyer by trade, and I recognize that as this body is sitting in a quasi-judicial setting, it's important to create a record. Plus, I believe Mr. Jarolowski wasn't here in the last 2 meetings, and I thought it was important to provide that historical perspective for context.
Let me just ask the board attorney.
Technically, he is not a party and should be afforded the 3 minutes that is afforded to everybody else.
So we need to limit it to 3 minutes?
To the public. I would hesitate to deviate from those standards.
Okay, so we will have to keep you to the 3 minutes, but if our board secretary could just restart the clock. Okay.
I'll just hit the high points of the letter. I just don't think you reached the merits of this application for 2 reasons. Number one, the August 22, 2023 decision was final. If you look at the record, you'll see that the applicant was offered an opportunity to continue the case or accept the conditions, which included no second story over the garage. The applicant was here with her architect, and they chose to go ahead and have a vote and accept the conditions. At that point, they had, the city had 5 days to issue a final written decision, and then the applicant had 30 days to appeal. As far as I know, an appeal was not filed, so the decision became final at the end of September. And that's set out in the ordinance. It's nothing new. I did also have an opportunity to review the rules and procedures of the Historic Board, and I also picked up on the same thing that you did, Ms. Kellogg, which is when there's a denial, and I submit to you that when this board denied the second story structure over the relocated garage, that was a denial. And so the applicant can't come forward with the same application, which I submit to you is identical than what was already considered by the board. The only difference between the original application and the one that's currently before you is that the applicant basically took a 4-foot slice out of that second story structure to increase the setback. That's not sufficient. Third, you know, as a resident, I think we have the right to rely upon the finality of this board's decisions and not have to worry that an applicant is going to continue to come back for additional changes, particularly where it appears that notice was not properly provided by mail. No sign was posted in front of the property. I found out about this when Mr. Sicklin emailed me, and my response to him was, wait, this was already decided, what's going on? And so here we are. I think I've set forth in my letter the reasons why you don't reach the merits of this case. There's nothing for you to consider. And so I would respectfully request that you deny the application as moot. There's nothing new. And the decision that this board made in August, I will remind you, was the result of a compromise, a give and take. The applicant wanted to move a non-contributory garage forward closer to the street and add a second story to it. The board had reservations about that back in July, raised the same concerns in August, but as a result of some give and take, reached a compromise of no second story over the garage, and the board should uphold that decision. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else here in person to speak on this matter? Okay. Oh. Okay. If you'll give your card to the board secretary, and again state your name and address for the record.
When she's done, I'd like an opportunity to speak to the board.
Okay. Do you need to do that now?
No, let her go ahead.
Okay.
Hello, my name's May Ferguson. I am a resident in the neighborhood, and I'm also on the board for the neighborhood association. And myself and a few other board members have sent letters in approval of this project. And I also wanted to, because our president of our board cannot be here tonight, he asked that I read this letter from him, and I'll give you guys a copy after. But dear West Palm Beach Historic Preservation Board members, I'm writing in my capacity as president of Historic.
Who is this letter from, ma'am? The name?
Sean Heiniger.
Thank you.
Historic Prospect in Southland Parks Neighborhood Association regarding the historic renovation of a home located at 3017 Vincent Road, owned by Holly Ross. After carefully pursuing the architectural drawings prepared by architect Earl Jackson, which the board will be reviewing at your November 28th, 2023 meeting, I'm impressed with the work of Mr. Jackson, who previously taught architecture at Columbia University. I believe the small addition over the garage, which would be set back almost 65 feet from the street, is keeping with the mission-style design of the home, adds to the home's charm, and importantly, Ms. Ross requires this small amount of additional square footage space to accommodate her family's special needs. It is my understanding that over several months of redesign and multiple appearances before the board, Ms. Ross has dedicated substantial time, energy, and expense to address the board's comments and her efforts to attain the very highest level of quality historic restoration through design performed by 2 architects. This project, in my opinion, will contribute greatly to the neighborhood's diverse character and express great thought, time, and effort by its owner. Hopefully, Mr. Jackson's work will result in the final approval of Ms. Ross's project, so she will then be in position to complete the work and enjoy the use of her property with her family. Respectfully submitted, Sean Heiniger.
Give that to the clerk.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else in person? If you'll state your name and address and also fill out a comment card for the record. Yes, that works.
My name is Mark Gagan. I live at 3004 Vincent Road, across the street.
The only thing I would like to state is I would trust the judgment of the board. You have more information than I do. I've seen the original plans. This seems to be a modification of that. So, I just believe that you're looking out for the best interests of the neighbors. So,
Thank you, we appreciate that. If you'll hold off one moment, we still have, Ms. Hamilton needs to read into the record some letters that were received. Thank you.
Yes, the first letter is actually from Mr. Garcia. Would you still like your letter to be read? It's been provided to all the board members?
As long as it's part of the record, Ann, I don't think we need to, if I instructed you to read them into the record, I apologize. As long as they are already a part of the record and the board has copies of them, that's
The
fine.
board does have copies. It was not provided with the packet, but each one of them has one at their desk.
And if they choose to appeal, that would be part of the record then, his letter?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, I do have one other letter from a Melanie Harris. It reads as follows: To Ann Hamilton, I am Melanie Harris, 119 Westminster Road, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33405. First of all, I would like to state that I have not received a notice of the meeting taking place this evening at 5 p.m. regarding case number 23-39A for the Ross home, 3017 Vincent Road. I also have received no notice of the new application for the second floor addition on the now expanded garage. I agree with Mariano and Shelley Garcia's opposition letter to the Historic Preservation Board dated November 27, 2023, in all aspects, and I do not support approval of this new application for a second story over the garage because it overpowers the form of the primary historic structure and changes the scale to compromise its historic character and all other details that the Garcias have stated in their letter. I have renovated many historic homes in the West Palm Beach Historic District and have always abided by their guidelines. See the attached thank you note from Frederick Mittner in the past. We renovated 119 Westminster Road and received a historic 10-year tax exemption as a reward for being a good steward, preserving and promoting the county's history. My home at 119 Westminster Road, second floor windows directly looked south towards Vincent Road at the 3017 Vincent Road home, and the second floor garage addition proposed would be visible from my 1920s home. I do not agree with this proposal, and please follow the historic guidelines regarding non-contributing structures on historic homes, in addition to everything contained in the Garcia's letter to you dated November 27th. Best regards, Melanie Harris, 119 Westminster Road, West Palm Beach, Florida, 33405. And you did receive a copy of this at your desk as well.
Thank you.
I just want to state that while staff brought this to you because there was a change to the plans, if it is within the board's purview to find that it is essentially the same application and that, you've already seen it, but whatever decision you make, let's just make sure we put on the record, even if you've done it before, let's repeat what what you found before so that we've got the standards on the record.
Thank you. Okay, is there any further public comment before the applicant's opportunity to rebuttal? Okay, seeing none, the applicant may come up.
Hello again, Alan Sicklin, representing the applicant. Just to clarify whether this had been heard before, I looked at the transcript of the matter, looked at the tape of the hearing, and at that time, the applicant was given a choice. Do you want us to vote on this addition over the garage, or do you want us to vote on everything but for that? And the applicant, being anxious to move ahead with construction because of the familial problem that I've already identified, said don't vote on the part over the garage, vote on everything else, and that was approved. Subsequent to that, we met with Ms. Hamilton and talked to her about what an application to modify what had been approved, which included the 211 feet addition. And also deal with the issues that she thought were of concern to the board. So it was pushed back to 65 feet, almost 65 feet from the end of the street. It was reduced in size, was reduced in height. So there was no final decision that would preclude this. Also, just, not that it really makes a whole lot of difference, but you can't argue against receiving notice. I received improper notice, and then show up at the board meeting that you say you weren't noticed about. A couple of other things. And again, we lawyers don't provide substantial competent evidence. What we do is stand here and we argue. We tell you the way we see the facts. The substantial competent evidence is provided from experts, if you will. There's 2 experts involved that have offered testimony. One is Mr. Jackson, our architect, who went over each of the standards for you and indicated that they were met. There was nothing to controvert that. Nobody stood up, no other expert stood up and said, he's wrong, you don't meet those. The other expert is your Ms. Hamilton, the city's employee, your professional that provides you with information. And she concluded as well that we met the standards, and that and she recommends approval of this addition. So, and that was not controverted either. So, as the meeting was opened by the Ms. Kellogg, the chairman, and she said this is to be based on substantial competent evidence. This is quasi-judicial. Your judges presented at the hearing. And the evidence, again, not to be overly redundant here, was 2 sources. One, a professional architect, one, your own historic preservation planner. Not controverted. Not controverted. Okay, well, quasi-judicial, I don't know what exactly that was meant, but it's based on the evidence presented to you at the hearing. The other thing I want to also just emphasize, and then I promise to sit down, we submitted approximately 10 letters from other neighbors in the neighborhood, and they were very enthusiastic about this project. They think it's good for them, that it'll enhance, they think it's compatible, that it's a wonderful addition, that it'll enhance their property values and enhance the neighborhood. And also, the letter that Ms. Ferguson read from the president of the Prospect Park Association, also recommending approval. The whole point of all of this, I suspect, is to make sure that the neighborhood is protected. And notwithstanding Mr. Garcia's objection and the letter from the lady that's not here, this enjoyed overwhelming support, and Ms. Ross took the time to meet with each of these people that wrote letters, share the plans with them, provide them with plans, and after that, they issued support. So again, the substantial competent evidence indicates compliance. The recommendation of your staff is for approval, and the community overwhelmingly, other than a couple of exceptions, is in favor of this. And I should add that the ordinance, last thing, I keep saying that, but the last thing is, one of the things your ordinance says is that it's important to identify and assist the property owner with their needs. And the whole purpose of this addition, as I read from Ms. Ross's letter, was to have a place where she can house her mother and father so that they don't have to go, he's got Parkinson's, so they don't have to go to assisted living. And I would ask that you consider that as well. Appreciate your time. Sorry for babbling on. We hope you see it as we do. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Hamilton, could you just speak to the noticing requirements and what was done?
Yes, so notice was published in the Palm Beach Post. This was an update to an application. We don't typically resend out mailers when we do updates. The publication in the newspaper is, I believe, legally sufficient, and we're not required to send notice even for additions. We do it as a courtesy. But this was published in the newspaper. We don't post signs for additions, but as an update, no, there were no mailers sent.
Thank you. Can I just, because we're trying to do everything procedurally correct, the applicant is allowed a short rebuttal, so are we allowing us? Okay, I think your rebuttal has been met. If we've had any questions, we'll ask. Are there any questions of the applicant at this time from the board?
Mr. Sicklin, have you ever moved to quash service in your professional career?
I'm sorry, Mr. Swift, I didn't hear what the question.
In your professional career, have you ever moved to quash service? I think that the argument you made was...
Service of process?
Sure, I think
Service of
that
process. No, I haven't done that. I'm a land use and real estate lawyer, not a litigator, so I have not done that. You're welcome.
Any other questions before we move into executive session? All right, seeing none, we'll move into executive session.
Ms. Kellogg, brought up an issue about process, whether there was a new application or so forth, or just in addition to the existing one. That attorney, I guess, kind of echoed some of your concerns. So I see not a conflict, but I would like to see that resolved by our attorney. What is it?
I think you should make a finding on the merits. It would not rely on the fact that this might be a replication of a prior application.
Okay.
Replication of a prior application, I would make a decision on the merits and put that in the record. That's the safest way to deal with it.
Okay. I mean, that said, I would otherwise agree with the application and the board's not the board, but staff's recommendations.
I'm going to say that I find this process frustrating and troubling. I remember being at the August meeting, and I remember one board member commenting that the contributing structure was being consumed in a way that removal wouldn't accomplish the purpose, which is, if those additions are made, that removal would allow the original structure to be there. There was quite a bit of back and forth, and I even remember quite a bit of back and forth about the garage, not just for the volume, but the visibility from the street. I think the representations made to us, quite frankly, have me second-guessing my memory, but I remember rather vividly the board agreeing that this was something that we would approve only if that garage was not part of it. This wasn't, oh, we'll pass on that and come back to it at a later date, but this was something that we approved with those conditions, and the architect even earlier stated on the record, which I think was pretty unequivocally clear, that he remembered those conditions being part of our approval. I also have concerns with the precedent this potentially sets, which is they agree to everything and then change their mind a couple months later, knowing that the process may be different. We didn't have a court reporter, as I recall, back in August. We certainly didn't have Mr. Sicklin here back in August. It seems that this is, all due respect intended, a way to circumvent a lot of the procedure. As you heard from Ms. Hamilton, because it's an update, we don't send notice. Certainly that notice, if this were new construction, would have been sent. And I view this as new construction. I view our previous vote as denying this and this being a new application. And so I think that procedurally I have a problem with this being presented to us in this fashion, and I'm opposed to it. I think that given our previous findings, I'm also opposed to it. And I also believe, and please anybody on the board, correct me if I'm wrong, this is the first time special needs were mentioned, all due respect intended to the family, but I assume the Parkinson's diagnosis predated that August 22nd meeting. It seems odd that this is the first time we would hear about it when the garage was addressed then and no mention of special needs for the family were made. We're certainly considerate and not cold-hearted when it comes to those considerations, but it seems frustrating to me the way we've arrived where we have today, and I do not have a tremendous amount of sympathy for late-raised collateral arguments the way it seems we're experiencing this evening. So I would be opposed to it, both on previously decided grounds, and it probably should not be brought before us after a year has passed, and I would also be opposed to it based on what we allowed, those conditions that we allowed the construction to proceed upon, and so I would be opposed on either basis.
I absolutely agree with my colleague to my right. I believe that the application that was previously approved was compliant with the Secretary of Interior standards based on the removal of the second floor addition on this area. And that was the basis of this board's approving the project for the second floor. I wish that I would have seen maybe an alternate scheme presented as part of this application that maybe pursued variances or sought to put a addition on the other structure that's existing in the rear, either to either side. I think there's a one-story portion, but in any case, I believe that I voted in with the affirmative in the approval of the prior application, and I am supporting a denial of this application.
I believe my colleagues' compelling evidence, compelling arguments, I should say, have led me to change my mind. Thank you.
I think another qualifying, I guess, detail here is this current amended application. It doesn't lend itself to be radically different from the previous application. I mean, what can we, as a board, do to clearly delineate, right, 4 feet of setback? Is that radical enough? Is that a radical enough change to really make the argument that this is not a carbon copy of the previous denied, not necessarily denied, but varies from what we approved last time, but we struck down the conditions that were imposed, rather?
I am also in agreement with my colleagues, and as our city attorney recommended, I just want to read into the record, as a matter of record, that my primary objection last time related to our additional standards, the size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume. The physical size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume should be compatible with the surrounding buildings without overwhelming them. Evidence was submitted arguing to that had been met. Walking the site like I did today, and also knowing that street very well, I cannot find that it is compatible with the size, scale, bulk, mass, and volume standard. And so my position remains unchanged from our previous board meeting.
I'm just going to throw a contrarian viewpoint out there, since this is a different lens that I'm looking at versus everyone here has seen this previously. We're hearing a lot on the neighborhood and how that's really important for everyone, and we also want to address the needs of the homeowners as well, and there are needs. And perhaps this may be encouraged to submit a new application. Now, again, this is just my lens, and I'm looking at it for the first time, as opposed to previously viewed stamps on it, but I also agree with your sentiment on the route that this has taken is difficult, but let's at least open our minds to perhaps a new application if the needs of a larger footprint is still needed. Thanks.
Any other commentary by the board, or would someone like to try a motion?
I'll make the motion. I move that the Historic Preservation Board deny application number 23-39A, which is 3017 Vincent Road, for the alterations or additions presented to the board. The motion is based upon the testimony presented along with the staff report that competent substantial evidence of the record has not been submitted that satisfies the standards set forth in the Historic Preservation Ordinance, Section 94-49 of the city's zoning and land development regulations, the Secretary of the Interior's standards for rehabilitation, specifically the standards that were presented to us today. I am seeing standards 9 and 10 of the Secretary of the Interior Standards for Rehabilitation, which states, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction will not destroy historic materials, features, and spatial relationships that characterize the property. The new work will be differentiated from the old and will be compatible with the historic materials, features, size, scale, and proportion, and massing to protect the integrity of the property and its environment, as well as new additions and adjacent or related new construction will be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. And for those reasons, I move that this board deny the application.
I second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, the motion is denied. Thank you for your time. And it looks like that's it for our agenda this evening. May we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.